So Graham, Cannes is just around the corner. Exciting times, really looking forward to going and being there this year. So we know creativity is really the lifeblood, the beating heart of advertising effectiveness. So it feels like, a really perfect moment to just reflect on why creativity matters so much. And one of the things I often find myself doing is, let's look for a definition of creativity. And whenever you look, you always see words like originality, unexpected, different, unique, original. They always come through. And when we look at Cannes award-winning ads, that's definitely a defining characteristic of them. So they come through as having what we call ad distinctiveness. So the ad being perceived to be different to others in the top 20% of all ads. And that's also true of Effie winners and IPA winners as well. So that sense of originality really matters. And from an effectiveness point of view, it matters because that's what our brains do. We pay attention to things that are really different and original, don't we?
Mm-hmm. We do.
But the other thing that really matters in terms of what your brain pays attention to is things that make you feel something. And I know that this is a shared passion that you and I have had for many years on the journey we've been on, both at Kantar and in our partnership with you at Affectiva. And I think what's really important is that we measure that through your technology in an uncontrolled. We're measuring their intuitive emotional reactions, and we can do that moment by moment. And not only do those award winners come through as being really distinctive, but they punch above their weight in terms of just the amount of emotion that they evoke. So I wondered if you could just tell us a bit more about, the technology that sits behind that, how we measure it, and why you think it's important to do it in that way.
Sure, can do, and I totally agree about the importance of emotion and emotional response being like the lifeblood of creativity. It comes through so strongly in those really original and really kind of punchy ads that win all the awards. And we certainly see it in the technology that we obviously use with you at Kantar. So our technology is an emotion AI technology. That is, we use AI learned algorithms to understand people's reactions to content in the moment based on analysis of their facial expressions. So, in the way we do this varies a bit depending on the use case, but as we're working together researching advertising, obviously as part of a survey, people will be watching the ad. While they do that, with their consent, they're recorded, and those recordings of their faces are sent to us at Affectiva. We use our algorithms to understand, whether people were smiling, whether they were frowning, and so on, and from that really understand things like, how did they react in that moment to each scene, each element of the ad, and that can be really powerful. So it's very much a direct observation approach. We're not asking questions. We're not relying on people's memory. And I think it is an important thing that it's important to measure emotion in that way, because, we're great at remembering the gist of things. So people are absolutely able to answer a question about how they felt about a piece of advertising, for instance, or a movie or a brand experience. But what they're not so good at doing is telling us why. And if we want to understand what are the creative drivers, what works about a particular film, a particular ad, and what doesn't, you kind of have to dig under the surface of the overall experience, and you have to say, well, okay, what's the journey that people went on? How did they get to that overall feeling that the ad evoked? And it's really only by kind of measuring in the moment that you're able to do that. Because we've worked with, I've worked together on lots of different ways of measuring emotion. But if you're asking a question, you are somewhat encouraging people to think about how they're feeling as opposed to just feeling. And that's not how the brain works. We want therefore to get that direct measurement of emotion, and that's why we measure things in the way that we do. We deploy that.
Yeah, and it matters so much, doesn't it? Because there's an intent, and there's an intent. So you're telling a story, you're intending to evoke certain emotions and take people on a particular journey. We sometimes see this effect of knowledge bias that gets in the way of an idea being translated into an ad that works, because the creative agency know the story, they know what's meant to be happening, the client does, and so they naturally see that unfolding when they watch it. But when people are watching it for the first time, they don't have that knowledge already of the story. So we're able to look and see, okay, well, is that intent? happening? Are they understanding it in the way that you hoped they would? And which moments in particular are resonating really powerfully, so that when you come to cut it down, create content for use in other places, you know, you've really got that guidance. So I wondered, thinking about Can as well, is there an ad that stands out as doing this particularly powerfully for you, that, you know, when people say, come on, tell me about an ad, which one comes into your head?
Yeah, but there's an ad that I often talk about. I think it won awards a couple of years ago. It's for Starbucks, and it's their Every Name Tells a Story campaign. And the one that stands out to me, there was a really interesting story of a transgender man. You know, we see kind of throughout the ad, he's, you know, constantly people are referring to him by his birth name, so his parents and authority, you know, online forms. But he gets to use his new name, James. And at Starbucks, he gets to say that's his name, and there's a great moment where, you know, the barista kind of hands him his coffee, you know, and using his name, and it's just a really powerful emotional moment, and the ad rightly won many awards as a result. And what was really interesting was, you know, the facial expressions people show when they watch the ad are really revealing. You see kind of the empathy that people feel with that character, and those moments at the end where he gets to use his name in that context, and in the context of the brand experience, you know, they really resonate. People, you know, really you know, respond positively. And what was particularly interesting about that one for me was, you know, you could see both the power of those moments, but it wasn't just an ad that, you know, appealed to one group. It wasn't an ad that, you know, you might think of as, oh, that's just a millennials ad, right? No, lots of different age groups really, you know, really empathize with that moment, and it worked very powerfully across a wide audience. So I always think of that as a really interesting ad, and also, you know, a case where you could really isolate the moments where you feel like the magic happened in the narrative.
Yes, yeah, it gives me goose pimples when you talk about it, when I think about that story. And it's that human insight, isn't it, or tapping into culture, that really gives it that power. So I think the one I think about is Lysol, Protect Like a Mother.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've seen this recently as well with a Legoland ad, where stories could be told in a really simple way. So in the Lysol Protect Like a Mother ad, you've got these beautiful human insights of moments when a mother wants to step in and protect her child. It might be crossing the road, or it might be, I think there's a scene where they're in the park and the child starts getting bullied. You could have just shown a mum, right? But what they do that's so emotively powerful is it's a bear. You know, mum is a bear when they're crossing the road, and mum is an elephant when the child's being bullied in the park. Now, I'm sure I've shown my kids up sometimes when my boys, when they were younger, in the park, and I was the elephant coming through. So, you know, what are you doing to my child? But it's that creativity that drives it, because it just brings that extra layer of engagement and emotion to how you feel. And that I did phenomenally well. Another Can winner, but massively emotively engaging, I think almost off the charts, and had a really feel good factor about it. I think that's something else, you know, as we approach Can, I'm really curious to see which ads do well, because I think ads that make people feel good, the power of that has perhaps been a bit forgotten. So I hope we see some real feel good and joyful ads this year.
Yeah, likewise. And I think it's a really important point you're making, because I think, you know, not all emotion is equal. So, you know, we absolutely want to make people feel something powerful in the narratives we tell in advertising, and absolutely that's what the award winners do. But I think sometimes, you know, we've seen it occasionally that you know, advertisers, as they reach for an emotional story, they can tend to, you know, I guess kind of focus a little bit on dramatizing the problem and perhaps less on the resolution. And actually, it's often the ads that are both kind of creative but also effective, they tend to be the ones that leave people in a much more positive emotional place. So they resolve that story, and you know, you absolutely need light and shade in a narrative for it to work. And so that, you know, there's no sense that you just want to make people feel good all the time, but actually leaving people in a positive place seems to be a hallmark of the ads that really kind of, I guess, leverage their creativity effectively and you know, leave people feeling good and leave people feeling good about the brand.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that can be hope, can't it? Or a solution. You know, it's inspiration. It's the gift that you get from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, whether that's making you feel good or solving something. So yeah. Let's come back and maybe we can talk again about the winners.
Let's do that. Would love to.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.